So my name's Brianne, and I am the CEO and founder of a company called Ethique, which I hope that all of you heard of and all of you use exclusively.
Of course.
Yeah. That was me when I was about 19 years old. I looked so young. Yeah, and a little bit less stressed. I was studying at university. My first day at university, and I was super excited that I was studying what I wanted to study for the first time. You know, I'd been dreaming about university ever since I was a kid. I always knew I was going to go and study science. Got to university, had my first day, got home, and the house was empty, and I didn't have anyone to get excited to. And that was a real shame, because I like to talk. Everybody was at their jobs, and that was when I thought, nah, not doing it. I don't want to work for other people. Other people don't want me to work for them, because I'm a very bad employee. I don't listen, I don't do as I'm told. I just have this horrible personality flaw. I'm not very good with authority. Is that me? I'm going to stay very still. So I started my first business actually when I was 8. Can I have a slide, please? I started a pet detective company. I was back one. Yeah, I've always been obsessed with animals, and I wanted to be able to spend my life with them. And actually, a little bit like Jane Goodall. So I had this idea that I could go and live in somewhere in the jungles of Africa or something, and just live with animals, which is a little bit far-fetched, but she did it, so why couldn't I? But I started a pet detective company, and I did find a cat. But one of the biggest issues with a business is you have to be able to monetize it, and no one would pay me for it. So that business didn't last very long. My first real business I started when I was 19, back that day when I got home from university and everyone was alone, or I was alone. And it was a cake decorating company. And it lasted for 15 minutes. I did get my first order in that 15 minutes, and that was within the time that I realised I can't decorate cakes at all and I had no experience. So I closed that company. My first real business, you're seeing a theme, I'm a bit of an idiot. My first real business was called Pure. And my mother hand-painted that logo for me. That's pretty cool. It was just a cosmetics company. I used my student loan to buy a few ingredients from a store. I just started mixing stuff up in my kitchen. Really, it sounds a little ad hoc, and to be fair, it was. But I sold online. Thank you. And I got quite a bit of a following, actually. A lot of people really liked the idea. It was very, very basic and very just giving it a go. I built a website. Can I have a slide, please? Thank you, I can do that. Perfect. Yeah, it's going to be easier. I built that website. I'm pretty proud of that website. Unfortunately, the platform that it was built on doesn't even exist anymore. That's how outdated that is. The problem with Pure was that it grew too fast. I have a tendency to get bored with things. We got too many orders. I thought, I don't really want to make them anymore. And eventually, because people started getting so bored with their wait time, they didn't place any orders anymore. A normal person at this point probably doubles down and focuses on one thing or the other, but I started a second business. So I opened a company called Tub, which, as you can see by the cute little icon, who's Sir Tubbington, not Mr. T, which is what I wanted. It was spoonable fudge, and it was super delicious, equal parts sugar, chocolate, butter, and cream, so kind of the 4 food groups. It was pretty amazing, and I got to make cool flavours. You know, I got to mix like peanuts and caramel and, I don't know, ice, those little hundreds and thousands of things. It was a really fun company, and we were massive victims of our own success. My mother and I were working from, 6 in the morning till sort of 7, 8 at night, making 150 kgs of fudge, and we couldn't keep up with orders, and the negative reviews crept in, and it really sucked. And again, I still got bored, and I came to realise that money isn't my driver. I wasn't interested in the financial aspects of these businesses. I didn't care about selling something that made people fat or made them wrinkly. It didn't fill me with joy. So what I realised is that I need a company, or I need a purpose beyond making money. And that is why I decided to create the world's most sustainable cosmetics company, which some of you have in front of you, and hopefully the rest of you have at least seen. So I call Ethique the world's most sustainable cosmetics company for a variety of reasons. obviously the biggest thing is that we're plastic free. I probably don't need to go through these. I should imagine you all know them by now. But we only, on average, recycle about 9% of all the plastic we have ever made in the world. People think that because it has that cute little recycling logo on the bottom, it means it's recyclable. I'm afraid it isn't. It statistically will not be recycled. Hands up, how many bottles, jars, containers, pots do you think the average woman uses every morning when she gets ready? So hands up for 5. Hands up for 10. 12? Lots of unsureness. It's actually 14. So if you think about all the things you use every morning, it's 14. And statistically, just 1 will be recycled. An often used statistic is that there will be more plastic in the ocean than fish by 2050. As the study goes, it wasn't fabulous, but it's still a pretty jarring statistic. So I knew most of this back then, and I knew that 40% of all plastic we make is single use. So when I talk about plastic being a problem, I'm not referring to the stuff we use every day, that is used day in, day out, and is used for a long time. I'm talking about the stuff you use once and throw away. So product packaging, plastic bottles, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And I wanted to do something about it. I knew that 70% of a typical shampoo or liquid shampoo is water. And I knew that conditioner is even worse, at 90, potentially even 95%, depending on the brand. Does it not seem really mental to fill a product with water, package it in plastic, ship it around the world, and then use that product in a room full of water? The reason they do it is because it's a lot cheaper, obviously. So I started Ethique to rid the world of plastic bottles. I started with a plastic bowl, ironically, which I still have though, so it's okay, and a microwave. And I think I hold the record for blowing up the most microwaves ever. I've blown up 4. Pretty proud of that. And crock pots, they set on fire. So I set out to save 1 million bottles by 2020. And we have already hit 4.3 and it's 2019. In fact, that number is slightly outdated. So we're pretty stoked with that so far. But we are not just a plastic-free company. I truly believe that a business has an obligation to operate as ethically as possible, and that every person who touches it, be it a shareholder, a customer, a supplier, deserves to be treated fairly. I mean, I think you'll probably agree that that's not outrageous. Yep, clearly it is, because it's unfortunately not how business operates. We are obviously cruelty-free, vegan, and we're also certified palm oil-free. I mean, the first 2 are kind of bare minimum for a cosmetics company these days, but certainly the latter is a little more unusual. But the more exciting things is how we operate Ethique. So we are living wage accredited. Do we know what living wage is? Yep, cool. So we pay everyone at minimum a living wage. We do not do the minimum wage. We are the highest scoring B Corp in New Zealand. Does anyone know what B Corp is? Yeah, cool, a few people. B Corp is like an ethical trading. It assesses your entire business as to whether what you are doing is ethical, essentially. So from how you treat your shareholders, your customers, to who owns you, what you do for the environment, and so on and so forth. We also have an honest trading scheme, so all our as many products as possible come from fair trade sources, and one of our biggest partners is in Samoa, and on average, we use about 26 tonnes of coconut oil a year. Obviously that's doubling year on year as our sales do. And it all comes from these guys here. So they produce coconut oil in villages around the islands, and it all gets shipped to Apia, where it is shipped to us. It's a really nice system, because if you pay people fairly, regardless of where they are, they have more opportunity to look after their communities and their environment. So where you can't reach, they can. And my favourite part of Ethique is our charitable donation scheme. Now, when I started Ethique, I said, right, we're going to donate 20% to charity. And everyone was like, yeah, that's great, cool, good for you. Because everyone thought, this isn't going to work, this is stupid. Now, it's quite a lot of money, and everyone's like, maybe you should back it down to 1%, like every other company out there. How does that make any sense? Now you're actually making money that it makes sense to donate less. I think it's mental. But the average company donates 1% to charity, we do 20, and we do 20 because if you lift up the community around you, you make the world a better place, and Ethique is about making the world a better place. It's not about selling shampoo. So this is what we started with. It's called sorbet, and I'll explain why later, because that was a problem in itself. That packaging is compostable. No, it's not. It's water-soluble, sorry. It's very cool. But back in this little factory, I moved out of my house about 2 years in. I hired a friend of mine to wrap and pack products. So we were taking over her house, it was taking over my house. My boyfriend then, husband now, was threatening to divorce me before we even got married. Wasn't very pleasant for anybody involved, to be perfectly frank. So I moved out. And we put a lot of money into our branding, which was very exciting because now it looks pretty damn swish. It's certified compostable, as I mentioned. And we funded it through equity crowdfunding. Does anyone know what equity crowdfunding is? Cool. So it's kind of like a mini share market. For those of you who don't know, it is, they like to say it makes funding democratic. So everybody can do it, and everybody can reach out to their supporters, who can then choose to support the brands that they like. So I think we were the 4th or 5th brand to ever do an equity crowdfunding raise. It was terrifying. I was selling 16% of the company to the public, and I figured I'd get all these horrible people saying awful things, but we actually raised $200,000, which was our maximum, in 10 days. So amazing. Best 10 days of my life, because every now and then you get an email from Pledge Me saying, congratulations, so-and-so has just given you $37,000. I mean, have you ever had one of those emails before? It's pretty cool. We ran out of money again, though, so we had to do it again. This was an interesting one. I launched our second equity crowdfunding raise at the same time as I was speaking on the Social Enterprise World Forum stage. So I was in front of, about 2,000 people, a part of a panel talking about something. Then all of a sudden, the audience started getting weirdly excited, and they had the ability to communicate with the speakers with a little votey app tech thing. And I started seeing notes coming through saying, Brianne, your thing's at 200,000, 300,000. So I missed the whole thing. I didn't get any emails that said you've been given $37,000, but by the time I got off the stage, we'd raised $500,000 in 90 minutes. Best ever. I've broken it. Okay. So it's been a long road, but we are now in 20 countries, or we will be by the end of, the middle of next year. So we are in Australia, obviously. We're in America. America is our biggest market. But the UK is catching up, and that was our most recent launch. A lot of people ask how I started on the export journey, and it was probably a little bit irregular. So people, the wisdom is you get profitable in your backyard before you bother looking offshore, and that's probably quite intelligent. That is totally not what we did. I went to Hawaii on a women's leadership seminar, which was an amazing 2 weeks. I got to spend some great time, meet some amazing friends. I didn't really learn a whole lot, but I'm not sure that's what those things are really intended for anyway. But I did meet a Forbes reporter, and she did a tiny little interview on me, and it appeared in Forbes, and hello, Forbes is a really big deal, so I was pretty sure that I would then be an instant millionaire, and I wouldn't have to work ever again, and everyone would know who I was, and it was just going to set Ethique on fire. 4 people read it. Very upset. But about 2 weeks later, I woke up to a personal message from a Huffington Post reporter, and she had reposted the interview, and 4 million people read it in a week. And we went viral around the world, and that was amazing. And that was the start of our export journey. We had applications for distribution from places like, I don't know, think of somewhere, Iceland and the UK and everywhere. We were on the front cover of publications around the world. We were on the front page of the Slovakian Times, and I have no idea what it says, and they stole a picture, a really, really terrible picture, off our Facebook page, but it was crazy times. There was a team of 4 in a room measuring 93 square metres, and everybody cried at least 4 times a day because there were just so many emails and calls. It was pretty rough, actually. And then the best day of my life, okay, I have a lot of best days of my life, obviously. I woke up to a text message about a week after the Huffington Post article, and my mother had texted me and said, Britney Spears has shared you on Facebook. And I'm a horrible, horrible daughter, and she's really bad at technology, so I text back something along the lines of course she hasn't, it's a clone account or whatever, you're reading wrong, or you haven't got your glasses on, or something horrible. But she was dead right, and Britney Spears actually shared us on Facebook, and oh my God, my mind pretty much exploded, because I am the generation that grew up with Britney Spears, not up with her, I wish, but, idolised her, and then she's sharing our product on Facebook. Best day ever. None of the comments cared, they're all really creepy, weird, Brittany, be my friend comments. And to be fair, it had no impact on sales at all, but it doesn't matter because I can still say it happened. And Ashton Kutcher made a video about us too, but no, he's less exciting. But that spiked our movement into America particularly because most of the interest was coming from the States. So we, believe it or not, we can't get directly on Amazon as the manufacturer of a product because we don't technically have a base in America. We can't get on Amazon, but someone can sell it for us. But we are now the highest rated, fastest selling shampoo and conditioner bar on Amazon, so take that, Lush, just saying. I'm so sick of being compared to Lush, it's not even funny. I shouldn't say these things. Australia. We launched into 450 pharmacies around Australia, and without doubt it's been the hardest market we've ever entered. Japan is my favourite market, actually. We had an email from a distributor in Japan saying we love your products and we want to import them. It took an entire year of negotiations, which is the longest by far. But now we are in, by February next year, it'll be 570 stores across Japan, and it's one of our biggest markets it's pretty niche still there. But our latest launch was into Holland and Barrett. Has anybody been to the UK, know what Holland and Barrett is? Yeah. So it's like a big Health 2000, I guess you'd call it. But like really quite big. They've got 850 stores in the UK and then a smattering of them around in 16 other countries. And we launched and sold out in 48 hours with a wait list of 55,000 in a country that no one had ever really heard of us. Because, again, people want a product that has values. So being a plastic-free brand has not been easy, to be honest. When I started out, a lot of people said, this won't work, it's impossible, or people don't want it. I sent an email to one of our current largest retailers back in 2015, and I said, I think you should sell this product, it's great. It looked like that Sorbet label back then, so she didn't think it looked great, and she responded with, good luck building a market for this kind of product. And I didn't have any resilience back then, so I was heartbroken, and I thought, what's the point? No one cares, I'm just going to go to the garden and eat worms. Ridiculously melodramatic. But we are now that retailer's third fastest selling beauty brand. Packaging, stickering, all of these things you have to consider when you make a plastic-free brand, all of the... So imagine you're a well-established manufacturer and a 26-year-old girl comes up to you who's got no business sense, no real idea about how the real world works and says, I want you to create me a plastic-free product and I don't want it to be any more expensive. You're going to say no. And I got loads and loads of no's until I met our current packaging manufacturers who are based in Auckland, so everything is made in Auckland or Blenheim, and they have been a phenomenal partner. That is a horrible photo of me, but never mind. That's our research chemist, so I do a lot of the concepting still. So I will put together a formula that works at small scale, and they will scale it because a small batch, 4 kgs, does not equal 500 kgs, as we found out, unfortunately. And logistics is the other one. Who's ordered something from Amazon and found it's come in a box? Like that. For a product like that. And they do that with our bars too. So we're trying to work with Amazon to lessen their plastic load. And excitingly, one of the largest warehouses in the USA we work with, our distributor in the USA, and they ship about 25,000 parcels a day. And because of our working with them, they will now be changing their entire warehouse to completely plastic-free within 6 months. So that is change. I've already talked about our values. But essentially our philosophy boils down to 3 things, which is people, planet, profit. It is often used, it's the triple bottom line, it's not a surprise to anyone, but how is this not how businesses operate everywhere? It is the right thing to do. I have a couple of tips. How much am I doing on time? Good? Cool. So I'll race through these. Who here runs or wants to start or has business visions? Is anyone running one? Awesome, quite a few of you. So my tips you probably already know. You don't have to know what it is that you want to do yet. I went through school, I was obsessed with science and obsessed with animals. So the fact that I'm running a cosmetics company does not follow at all. It makes no sense. And I don't really care about cosmetics in general. It doesn't make me excited. I don't watch makeup tutorials. It's just not who I am. But I get to have an impact on the things I care about through this business. So it doesn't really matter if you don't know what it is you want to do yet, but eventually your path will take you somewhere where you're doing something that you care about, as long as you just keep working towards it. this is probably aimed at the slightly younger people in the audience, but I used to think I was really weird because I was really passionate about the environment and I was weird about things. I did once have an episode where I may have been involved with, I shouldn't say it in public, but there was battery hens and there was a rescue. I didn't break into a battery farm at all, but it was just a little bit weird as a kid. And I thought I was alone, but it turns out when you leave school, because it's not a particularly, it does not reflect the real world, you find people who think like you. And in fact, you said that earlier, Joe, didn't you?
Yes.
You do. Putting you on
Sorry,
the spot.
that didn't mean to sound so... Yes.
So Ethique has exploded around the world. It is absolutely safe to say that for a cosmetics company, it's one of the most crowded industries. It's a horrible industry, to be frank. It's incredibly wasteful. It's incredibly bitchy. It's full of bullying. I get all sorts of shit all the time. I'm sorry, I just swore. Too late now.
Perfect.
The reason we have exploded is because we have a purpose. We have lots of purposes. Our overall purpose is to make beauty eco-friendly, but we have so many others backing that up. With our donation scheme, our fair trade scheme, they all matter to consumers, and there's so much more you can talk about. And people care. People want brands to reflect who they are. And that sort of rolls into that one. I get a lot of requests for mentoring, which is great because I really like doing it. But my first question I'll always ask them is, what makes you different to the other product on the shelf? Because there's very, very few truly innovative products out there. And they can't tell me. 95% of people can't really tell me why they shouldn't buy the other one. Or they'll say it's something weak. Like, if your point of difference is price, that's fine. It's Amazon's point of difference, and it's clearly worked really well for them. But you've got to have one. Don't copy someone else, because it won't do you any favours, and it will really not make you any friends. And be yourself. Oh, this is cliche. I don't trust my gut very much, because my gut's usually wrong. In fact, I do it the opposite way around. But just because someone tells you they've been there before, they have the experience, they know what they're doing, don't ignore what you think in favour of what they think. I've made some bad business decisions based on advice I've received from mentors that I shouldn't have taken, but I took against what I thought was right because I thought they knew what they were doing, and it got me into some bad positions. And that sort of follows into the last one, which is don't believe what everybody tells you, because most of it is rubbish. So that's my short little journey, a long journey actually, in a very short sentence. And now we can do a little bit more interactiveness.
Yes. So this is a part where I just get to ask her, her being Brianne West. I'm still nervous. But if everyone can just please, if you could just put your phone up. If you do have a phone, just put it up and wave it to me, please. She's so resourceful and helpful at the same time. I'm like, all right, so with your phone, so I'm going to be asking some questions up live. So this is a moment for me to ask some questions because I'm selfish like that. But if you have any burning questions that you're wanting to ask, please go on slide.do, so that's SLI.do, and type in the hashtag The Road to Remarkable 2019. Really, really short novel yet again. The Road to Remarkable 2019. And we'll be visiting the slides right after the questions that I ask. So that's slide.do, so that's SLI.do, and then the hashtag is The Road to Remarkable 2019. Kia ora. All right. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Big Joe Cool Guy, and today I've got a very special guest with me, and I think you all know who she is. But for those of you who don't know her, she is Brianne West. Or Brianne West, sorry, I keep on saying your name wrong. Is this the first time, or is this the second? Third?
Today?
Oh, thank you. I like to be first for something. So your first question is, talking about sales, when did you make your first sale? And tell me the scene. So what were you doing for Ethique? So what were you doing? What were you eating? What were you feeling like? What was happening?
You have a great deal of faith in my memory. I started Ethique at markets, actually. I mentioned the website. But what really kicked off was markets. But my first ever sale was to my mother.
And was that like a
pity buy? That was a pity sale.
All right. And then, so what are some of your habits that you feel contribute to your success that you've achieved today?
I don't really have habits because habits build routine and I don't like routine at all.
Wait. Can you just say that again?
I don't like habits. Well, I don't have habits. I don't think I do.
I'm sorry, you've literally just debunked my whole channel because like everyone here is looking for a step-to-step guide on how to achieve. So can you just...
The only thing that I think that separates a business founder or an entrepreneur, which is an overused word, is resilience, persistence, and grit, right? So it is so hard building a business. It doesn't matter whether, and it's odd because obviously when you start, the challenges are smaller, but to you they feel enormous. And as you go along your journey, they seem that little bit more achievable. You know, the mountains just seem that little bit smaller. It of course helps when you have a team. But the thing that sets people apart who do business and do it successfully is the ability to pick themselves back up. That's all it is. Just have faith in what it is you're doing and yourself. And there's no habits. You don't get up at 4 a.m. like that person at Twitter. It's stupid. You just don't have any sleep and you become crotchety. What is it like Mark Wahlberg who gets up at like 4 a.m. and then he goes for a 15-hour run and then he does something else mental? I mean, you don't believe that crap, do you?
I don't, but I think my followers did, and I'm just going to move on from that question. No, I think... See, the one thing that I will say about being right next to someone of this success, she makes me feel like I can be myself, like literally, like I'm talking to one of my sisters, like, hey, how's it going? Like, and then she answers like that, and I'm like, okay, next question. So you mentioned in some of your interviews that you struggle with impostor syndrome. Can you please just tell my audience what that is and how you've overcome it and any advice for young people going through the same situation?
I think it's pretty common. So do people know what impostor syndrome is? Yeah, I see lots of people
just
nodding.
Me then.
It does tend to be a female problem, but not exclusively. But it's the idea that you're going to be found out that you do not belong where you are and you've really only got there off the backs of other people. And I haven't overcome it at all. In fact, it was really bad about 6 months ago and I drove home in tears. Nothing had happened that day, but I just drove home and I think like I'd had a phone call that ended slightly badly.
You do that too?
Every Monday.
Oh. Wait, so are you saying that we should schedule it?
Yeah.
Like, because I feel like mine's like, I do it when I'm crying in the shower so it doesn't look like I'm crying, you know? Like,
smart.
Saving water.
Yeah.
Carry on, imposter syndrome.
So it's just the feeling that you don't belong where you are, and I get a lot of credit, I get a lot of press, and I genuinely don't feel like I deserve it. It is not, Ethique success is not something I have achieved in a vacuum. Entrepreneurs are not this weird hero people hold up to be this magical beast. There's no such thing as an entrepreneur that is successful on their own, but they are held up to be, and it's very bizarre. So I struggle with that quite a lot. It's why I don't attend a lot of awards shows. I quite often happen to be somewhere else, how convenient, just so that the team get to experience those amazing things that I get the credit for all the time, which isn't fair because it's not just me. And frankly, I think I'm an idiot and I have no idea how any of this has happened. To be perfectly frank,
So the formula that I'm getting for my business students is celebrity endorsements plus sustainability equals success.
It actually that would be perfect.
Oh, okay.
Sustainability.
Anyone else writing notes? Come on. All right, so tell us, what's the biggest mistake you've made in your journey and what did you feel afterwards? How did you get through it?
Goes back to what I was saying before. I trusted someone. I met someone. They talked the talk. They were brilliant. Honestly, I would have walked over broken glass to have them on the team. Joined on the team in a role that is hard to remove, sort of a board type role, and it very quickly went south. It was very hard to work with them. They were very negative. I actually began to dread coming to work, and that's not a nice position to be in. And
can we just pause there for a second?
We can.
Put your hand up if you hate going to work. Just be honest with us. Come on. Just be. We've got a lot of us There's a lot of us that's actually on the boat. Oh, thank you for your honesty. It was a late one. I thank you for that. Really, really brave. But yes, carry on.
I feel for you. It's not fun. But it's not as easy as saying go and change it, unfortunately. So I was sort of forced into a decision. Someone else wiser than me realised that it wasn't working before I did, if that makes sense. Because you just know you're miserable, but you don't really know why. And then when I'd identified why it wasn't working, I had to make the phone call saying, we don't want you. Honestly, I would rather have set fire to myself. Or I don't know, anything else than do that. But you know what? It wasn't that big a deal. It wasn't anywhere near as bad as it was in my mind. The person didn't turn into a fiery dragon of doom. I didn't die. There was no tears. There was no gouging. What's in your mind is so not what happens in reality.
Because literally when you were talking before, the first thing that came to my mind was when you spoke on authority and you were like, yeah, I don't like it. And then it's I wanted to ask if you had to work with someone. That was the case in point.
It wasn't the authority aspect so much, it was the negativity. I do not do very well, and my team know, I will come up with really stupid, crazy, off-the-wall ideas all the time. I consider it a bad day if there hasn't been 5. And I'll go out and say, we're going to do this. Not like we're going to change the entire strategy of the company, but we're going to create this new product, or we're going to do this online, or whatever. And my team know a lot better than to say, nope. They'll say, okay, let's go and have a look. Because people who just say no before they even look at anything are not a fan.
It's weirdly strange, but I feel like I can relate. There's some uphill battles in regards to something that's, I don't know if anyone's aware of this, racial battle fatigue. Tough topic. I'll mention that. So join in next week. I'll be talking about that, okay, guys? But how do you deal with failure, and did you approach change with time?
I've never failed.
You've never failed?
I fail every day. Failure doesn't worry me. It's never... My parents brought me up. It's, again, a bit cliche, but to realise that I could do anything I wanted to. They moved from the Isle of Man. Hands up if you know where the Isle of Man is. Come on, like one. No one even knows where the Isle of Man is. I'm so proud of you.
I feel like that was more than I expected as well.
Do you know where the Isle of Man is?
Jesus.
Anyway, so my parents moved from the Isle of Man to New Zealand for me because there's nothing in the Isle of Man to do, right? They moved for opportunities. They did everything they could without being helicopter parents. I broke some part of me and they didn't take me to the doctor. They were normal parents, but everything they always taught me was that you can do whatever it is you want to do and anything is possible. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't matter. Within reason. Again, you don't go and drop your full-time role while you've got a family of 4 to support, right? I mean, you've got to use some common sense, but I don't feel failure. If something doesn't work, I'm the first to recognise it.
Wow, okay. And you mentioned resilience at the beginning. So what's your advice of... Brazilian. Totally threw me off.
I wasn't going to talk about that.
Resilience. No. Sorry, it's just my my Pacific Island accent. It might come off as Brazilians, but I'm sure you'll know. Anyways, so resilience. You spoke on resilience, and what advice or how do you build that over time?
It comes with experience, but it also comes with a mindset change. So it's often used, but is whatever's bothering right now going to matter in an hour? Is it going to matter in a day? Is it going to matter in a week? Is it going to matter in a year? I mean, if it's a really bad thing, think about the fact that in about 4 billion years, the sun will go supernova and we'll all be dead. We'll all be dead before that anyway. But there is nothing out there that really, 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 really matters apart from death or terminal illness. We get so wound up about things that are kind of irrelevant or are totally surmountable, and learning how to just water off a duck's back, that to me is resilience. It's because, yes, we have this challenge, but we can absolutely solve it, and having a good team helps. But it's if you need to go for a walk because you are struggling to cope with whatever situation you find yourself in, then go and do that. But go back with a clear head and don't be so dramatic, like Kardashian about stuff. It's like we try and ring. It's It's like we try and wring drama out of situations. It's so unnecessary.
I feel like you've answered one of my lifelong
Not to be
struggles. Oh, that too. But usually I eat when I'm stressed, and I feel like when you said go for a walk, I'm like, this is new. This is a bit of a remarkable journey for Joe. I'll need to figure out what walking looks like. I'll look into it, I'll look into it.
It's very self-deprecating of you.
Oh.
Stop it.
I guys, believe it or not, I know what that is. So you have spoken also about, you've been going overseas to different countries. How do you deal with uncertainty in terms of there must be a lot of decisions that you have to make and you might be uncertain about those decisions? How do you deal with it?
Again, talking to lots of different people, and again, trying to put some perspective around it. For example, with our launch into the UK, we've had this great launch with this exclusive retailer, and now we've got the world's largest retailer who wants to take the brand. And believe it or not, that's actually not a very nice dilemma because we legally can't. So we have to turn down an enormous opportunity to ensure we don't annoy anyone who's shown us support, right? So trying to make these decisions, make sure that you don't really screw up something that's very important for the business. It's obviously quite stressful. But again, talking to people and getting their opinion on it and thinking about it and going for that walk, it just helps take the emotion out of the situation. I read a saying the other day that says your emotional reaction to something is 90 seconds long, and after that it becomes reiterative. And I'm not an endocrinologist, so I don't know about hormones and things, but if your emotional reaction lasts longer, it's because your thoughts are teaching your brain to think that way, or something. So essentially, you have a 90-second emotional reaction, and then you can shut that off, and you can work to learn how to approach something logically. And a lot of the time, emotions is what gets us into trouble, Donald Trump. So if we can take the emotions out of all of the decisions we make, then we may make better decisions. So that 90-second thing, I probably should have Googled it before I mentioned it in front of people, but it's quite interesting.
It's all right. I've got my intel just fact-checking you as we speak, so it's all right. So at the same time, what are some of the things that you would have done differently along your journey? Would you do anything at all?
Hundreds of millions of things. I'd be very careful who I partnered with. I've got some great partners, don't get me wrong, but I would have looked before I left. I would not tolerate bitchy negativeness. So probably 2 years ago, we had a workplace that wasn't very nice. And looking back, it was clear when it started and why it ended. But I didn't really, again, it was one of those things. I'm quite I'm not a conflict person. If you haven't noticed, I like to be funny because that way it's light and it's not very scary, right? So I'm not good with conflict, and having those situations are really horrible. So learning to tackle them before they become a problem for everyone else is really important, and I would do a lot of things differently in that regard. Basically just fronting up to things before they become more of a problem. I would check my international trademarks. I told you the company started out called Sorbet, and we went out to our first crowdfunding round, and we brought 152 shareholders on, and we said we're going to go to Australia and America and we're going to make you millions of dollars and it's going to be amazing, jump on board. So they all jumped on the board, and I know a lot of people gave us what would amount to their life savings, which is a huge responsibility, and it's really an incredible compliment, but it's also very stressful because you don't want to let these people down. They become like family, right? And then I had to go out to them a week later and say, I'm really sorry, but I've made a huge cock up and it was absolutely my fault. But when I started the company, I didn't check international trademarks, because when you're in a kitchen with a microwave, you don't think about international trademarks. And so we had to change the name of the company in a week, which was stressful. So looking back, I probably would have checked IP, just to be really practical.
Well, I think I better look into my channel and really check my IP. Sure Big Joe Cool Guy might be taken, you know? So how do you keep going on your journey and not just give up and go and do something easier?
Because I truly believe in what it is we're doing. Again, it goes beyond plastic. We've saved 4.3 million plastic bottles. The next goal is 50 million by 2025. that would be awesome, because that would be how many bottles New Zealanders use every year for personal care products. So 50 million is an awesome goal. So that's a huge driver. Another one is my amazing team. Every single day, it's like walking, again, it's like, I am an only child, so I imagine it's like walking into brothers and sisters, but like good ones. It's a really nice environment, so they're a really positive driver. It's seeing all the good the extended work we do does too. So it's working with our families. We work in Rwanda with an oil that's produced in Rwanda, moringa oil, and seeing what that trade does for those families that don't have anything is a really powerful incentive to do more. So it's not, again, the product is not the point. It is about the story and the purpose behind the product. A product's a product.
Wow. And then also just wanted to ask, so Ethique, how did you come up with the name? Or is it pronounced Ethique or is it Ethique?
Very good. I came up with it in that week of doom that I mentioned. It means ethical in French. We just really, I think 4 or 5 of us were just madly searching the internet for words that sounded all right. There's no magical story behind it.
I was like hoping for you to be like...
Yeah, right?
Nope, so it is pronounced Ethique then.
Lots of people get really mad. They're like, why do you put an H in it? Well, I don't know, it's the French. I didn't invent it.
And I'm guessing now there's an IP and everything that's attached to it.
So much.
All right. So this is the time for we have our. Oh, Joe's going to go into it right now. So any questions that you do have, then I'm happy to just read them off for you on the slide here. But yes, so if anyone's got questions, please either put it up on slide.do, or otherwise, if you have one that's right now, and I can walk over to you. Anyone? What's your favorite colour?
Kia ora, ko rangi paringaro whatokuinga. I'm rangi pari. My favourite colour is purple. And so I was just wondering, kia ora, Brianne?
Perfect.
I was wondering, how do you stay so authentic in an industry that probably puts pressure on you to act, be, or behave differently?
Great question. Never actually had it before. I keep wanting to point with the microphone and you can't hear me. I don't feel a pressure to change. Occasionally, it's not true actually, because I'm intimidated by like shop assistants and in menswear stores because they're all very glamorous. So I am actually quite intimidated by a lot of people, and a lot of people in the industry are like that. But I will never be like them. And for me to be like them would lose the magic that makes Ethique what it is. So I've never felt the pressure. And I also, again, I keep talking about the team. The team would kill me if I tried. So I just haven't even considered it. I don't know. Sorry, it's not a very good answer, is it?
No, I think that was really beautiful. Great question. All right, so more technical difficulties. Anyone else have a question? It's burning yet? Yes? All right, so tell us your name and which beautiful country you come from.
Hi, I'm Mariana. I'm from the Philippines originally, but I moved to New Zealand when I was 13. And my question is, and you talk a lot about your team and how awesome they are. What are the things that make a good team?
Ooh. Okay, I'm going to stand up. I feel strange, sad. Passion, number one. So that's not to say that the entire team is super passionate about plastic, although actually they are. But they've got to be passionate about something related to Ethique. So they've got to want to be there more than anything. They've got to be there more than they want to go at BP, for example, because that makes them happy at their job. They've got to want to get on with the people around them, and there are people out there who don't want to. And I don't know, it's hard to explain, but when you have a bunch of positive people who have a can-do attitude, who are super keen and rowing in the same direction, all rowing in the same direction, it makes a huge difference than people who are just there for a job. You want people who are there because they care about the purpose of the company, but that is not a realistic situation for how life will always be, but that is the perfect team.
My question was, in terms of Ethique, have you focused a lot on strategy or operational excellence, or is it just that passion, as you say?
I have operational excellence in my COO, so I think a big chunk of Ethique's success, I keep saying, down to the team. I was looking for an operations manager about end of 2015 to cope with the drama that the Huffington Post article had brought. And this bloke walked in who was retired, didn't need to work, but he was bored, and he had scaled and sold 3 pretty mega successful companies in his own right, in pharmaceuticals and various other industries. And he walked in and said, I'll help you out for 6 weeks, and he's still here now. So he is the operational excellence, and he's taught me how to run a company and how to be a baby CEO, as he would say. But I think the reason Ethique is successful is passion. Operational excellence, really, businesses should be good at doing what they do, otherwise you're not very good at being a business. But that authenticity, the story, the passion behind the product, or passion behind the story, is what makes it successful. Yeah. And strategy we don't really bother with. We do to an extent, but it's a bit tough because we keep getting so many opportunities. It's not to say you should chase every opportunity, but you should also make sure that your strategy is nimble enough to take advantage of what comes your way.
Thank you for that. All right, so because we were having technical difficulties, I'm just going to read off the computer slides. All right, so our first question is, do you have any plans for other businesses or other businesses?
So many. Yes. But if I'm honest, what gets me really excited is the fact that I am expanding the non-profit side of things. So I'm very much moving into a couple of charitable things. Unfortunately, I'm not allowed to say a lot, but I've got a few business ideas and I'm very excited about them because this is the kind of concept that can move into so many other different industries. But the non-profit side of things is where I'm super excited.
Beautiful. So I guess that leads into the next question. So when going on to different business ventures, how do you stay financially stable?
When I started Ethique, I was probably 3 or 4 days away from being bankrupt. I'm pretty miserable about it too. So I come across as quite glib, but I have been at the very, very bottom end of things. But I didn't really learn from that. For 2 years, I didn't draw a wage. Like I said, I lived off my student allowance loan thingy, the living costs, and I've literally only just paid my student loan off, so don't do that. It was stupid. But it did get me to where I am, so I suppose it wasn't. I was lucky because I started it while I was at university, and that means I had I didn't have any responsibilities, I didn't really have to go to lectures, I didn't have a family to look after, I didn't have the constraints that so many people do now. So I was very lucky in the time of my life that running a business was not as difficult as it could have been. But I didn't run my personal finances, and probably still don't, in the most appropriate manner.
Thank you. Have you found it harder to find people to take you seriously as a younger woman?
Oh my God, I have the best story. It's not the best story, it's an annoying story.
Perfect.
So, my COO, who I was talking about, and I were checking out of a hotel in New York, and the checkout man, concierge, that's the word, he said, he turned to my colleague, the older male, and said, I hope your business went well, sir. And then, I know this is so true, I could barely even write it if it wasn't true. He said to me, and I hope you enjoyed your shopping. And I'm not speechless very often, but far out, and I was in a rage the entire way to the airport, and I became impossible for anyone to manage on the plane. I just couldn't believe that attitude is still around, but it is, and we do see it quite a lot. Not so much anymore, because people Google us before you have a meeting with us, so they know the score. But certainly before, probably a couple of years ago, it used to be quite bad. But it was great because my business partner supported me. And if the people in the meeting spoke exclusively to the males in the room, we would leave. If I wasn't taken seriously, we would simply not do business with them. And that was the support of my male colleagues. That was nothing I did because I was, again, non-confrontational, so I wouldn't have never done anything brave about it, unfortunately. So get people around you to support you. That would be a good way of overcoming it, so that you've got that support. Because unfortunately it does happen.
Wow.
Being young doesn't help either.
I feel like that's really, really nice that you've got males that are pushing for that as well.
Most men do.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Ethique export to many countries. How do you find distributing channels that align with your value, and how do you reduce the carbon footprint occurring for export?
We don't find distribution partners that marry up with our own because it's nigh on impossible. However, I am of the belief that if you partner with people who match your values to a T, we would still be in my kitchen. We would be, because there is no one out there that does what we do. There is no one else out there who adheres to the values that I have created in the company, because they're my values and they just don't exist yet. However, I believe you change a system from within. You don't shout at it from the outside. So that's why we work with Amazon. That is the example people use all the time. But we have reached a scale with Amazon where we have saved 4.3 million plastic bottles versus staying in my house where we've saved 50. So no, it is not a perfect situation, but we've also created change. Like I mentioned, the warehouse, the plastic is now plastic-free, or is on the journey to become plastic-free. And that wouldn't have happened had we not had the opportunity to work with those people. As for carbon footprint, it's not that easy. Obviously, we sea freight, but sea freight has the carbon footprint of 8% of flying. However, it's still not perfect, and they're relatively polluting themselves. So we're looking at manufacturing closer to source. And now we are at the scale we can manufacture potentially offshore in probably Europe. It doesn't make sense environmentally to ship everything to New Zealand and then ship it back. But New Zealand will always have some manufacturing, certainly for New Zealand, Australia, and parts of Asia. Obviously, we're carbon neutral, but in saying that, another 8% statistic, a bar has 8% of the carbon footprint of one bottle, and one bar is equivalent to 3 bottles, so they are vastly superior already, even when you air freight them.
What is the biggest piece of advice for someone who needs to build resilience against negativity to tell their own story?
Surround yourself with people who, in the initial stages, surround yourself with people who will support you to be you, because they will help build your confidence, and then you can widen that net a little and tell people who perhaps you don't think your story will resonate with as much, but you might be surprised, because there's very few people out there who will say, that's stupid, unless they're a beauty buyer, they'll tell you. But yeah, so it's the initial stages you build that confidence. So it's, again, I keep going on about it, it really is surrounding yourself with people who believe you and agree with your vision in the first stage, and then move on, and then you'll create a wave of change. There's someone very, very famous in the news right now doing just that. That would be Greta. Just for the avoidance of doubt.
Just in case you didn't know. Not everyone can be their own boss or be an entrepreneur nor earn millions. Do you think the narrative of you can do anything adds to the feelings of inadequacy? Well,
it goes back to my point that entrepreneurs don't act in a vacuum, and I don't like the weird attitude we have that, like, Elon Musk is a good example, right? He didn't invent Teslas. I mean, he didn't create the rockets that he's so famous for either. He's worked with a very clever team who get none of the credit. So no, you don't have to be an entrepreneur to create real change. You want to work in an organisation that aligns with your values. But I wouldn't give up on the attitude that you can do anything you want to do, because if you were to say that that's not true, then what would be the point? I don't believe in making myself miserable. I don't believe in making myself do something just because I have to over a long period of time. That's my belief, and I appreciate that that's very idealistic and it doesn't work with everybody's life. But I do believe that you can do anything you want to do, and actually there are some people who have overcome the most horrific odds to do some of the most amazing things. And yes, maybe that makes you feel a little inadequate, but I think you need to look at why that makes you feel inadequate, what is missing from your own life, and maybe go out and find that.
Beautiful. How do you balance work, play, and rest to prevent burnout?
I don't. I don't believe in balance. I'm sorry, you wanted me to be honest. I don't believe you can have balance, and if I was a man, would you ask me? I don't believe you can balance everything at once. You can have balance, but you can't have it all the time, right? So some days you're going to work for thought, tried to mix like 15 numbers. Wow, I did it again. 14-hour days. It's perfectly normal, right? And that day you're probably not going to go tennis and go to the gym and play with your dog and whatever else it is, and that's perfectly fine. But in saying that, it is important to at least once a week just go for that walk. Again, the walking is good, or just even half an hour a week makes a huge difference to me personally. But I'm currently at the helm of a business that's growing. It's been valued recently and highly. It's growing too fast for me to take my foot off the accelerator to seek some vision of balance that people who write yoga books think I should go and find. I don't subscribe to it. I'll have balance one day, but not right now, and that's fine. I'm not tired.
Who is your biggest influence and who do you look up to?
So many people. I tend to look up to quite a lot of big caricatures. I guess I read a lot of, David Attenborough is a childhood hero who I've maintained forever. But I guess the people closest to you are the most inspirational. My parents have always, it sounds really lame, isn't it? You look up to your parents. Ooh, I'm 20, no, I'm not 20, I'm 32. Damn it.
Mistake that all the time as well. 12.
I look up to people who do quite extraordinary things. So my inspirations are like Gwynne Shotwell from SpaceX, for example. So she's an amazing woman who's done some incredible things on an international, global, in fact, universal, because she's going into space, scale. So I look up to people who've done really big things, but then it's the people in your communities that are doing littler, but just as important things that are probably that little bit more aspirational because you can imagine yourself being them.
Beautiful. Do all your employees and contractors get paid a living wage?
They do.
Okay, great. And how many people do you employ in total?
We employ directly, so we've got a kind of a funny working relationship, I suppose. So we employ directly 9 people at Ethique HQ, which is small for a business our size, but we have contract manufacturing agreements in Auckland, and they have about 150 people, and we have a joint venture in Blenheim where unfortunately there's not a lot of jobs in the regions. I'm sure you're more than aware. So one of the reasons we went to Blenheim was because we wanted to create some, and it's a really nice initiative, a really nice factory there. And there is 16 of them there, depending on seasonality.
Have you thought about taking on board interns?
Paid or unpaid? I think unpaid interns, again, a form of taking advantage of people, again, personally. At this stage, we don't really have the time to train people too much. We're all wearing many, many hats, and to get the girls to try and just to train someone at the same time, I don't think it's a fair environment for either of them, so no, not at this stage.
Beautiful. Where's your favourite place in the world and why?
Did you put that in there? Because you asked me that earlier.
I did, and I did not because I was too busy trying to keep up with my notes. So no, I didn't.
Depends on the day. I really like New York, actually, which is weird because it's full of rubbish. But I have learnt how to scuba dive about a year ago, and I have become rapidly obsessed with anything underneath the ocean, so anywhere wet.
Beautiful. What's been the hardest thing about running an online business?
It's not online. We do about 20% of our sales online. The hardest part is combating the influencer obsession, because we don't work with influencers very much. I don't like the industry. It's very fake, and Ethique is very not fake, so it doesn't work to work together. So finding a way that marketing that resonates with today's audiences without subscribing to the give me free stuff and I might write about it thing, which I don't like.
What is the most effective marketing method that works for you?
Probably influencer marketing. Britney Spears was good. She'd be an influencer though, wouldn't she? Storytelling. So again, going back to the why, because people don't care about the product, they care about the story behind it. It doesn't matter what your product is, it doesn't matter if it's a baby unicorn made out of fudge, whatever. It doesn't matter what your product is, it matters about the story behind it. People buy the story. So the best marketing for us has always been talking about why we started the company or why we do what we do. And that leads to sales far longer, and those customers have a longer lifetime value.
Are you okay to answer more questions, or?
Well, I don't know, is everyone bored?
No? Okay. All right. What do you do when you're scared to take the leap? Bracket, well, open bracket. That isn't just do it. Emoji, crying face, close bracket.
How did you know what I was going to say? I'm not the person for this question. It's not very often I'm frightened of taking a leap because, again, I go back to I wouldn't take a leap. If I go back and ask myself, if this is going to matter in a year, then I might think quite hard about the question or the decision. But again, I run it by the team. Do you think it's a good idea? And if we're very rarely unanimous in a decision, but that doesn't matter because that's what getting opinions is all about. And then we just do it. Sorry. I don't know how to answer that question because it doesn't come up very often because we just constantly have these debates.
Do you live a low-waste life outside of your work?
I do. And I am looking at the moment to build, I'm going to have a forest, because everybody needs a forest, and the world's most sustainable home. Not just the world's most sustainable company, the world's most sustainable home. It's not even going to have a drop of concrete. Don't know how it's going to stand up, but there is always a way to do anything. But yes, I like to hope so. Unfortunately, my carbon footprint is high because I fly a lot, but I double offset it. I know, again, carbon offsetting is not perfect, but the way I can make myself feel that little bit better about it is that knowing I certainly offset it in other ways, and the plastic offset that Ethique has created as a result of that travel.
All right. Josephine, can you just scroll up for a second? I've got a question that's burning for me to ask. All my followers want to know that would you ever hire a plus-size Pacific Islander male model? Look by my reference. Honestly.
I need a headshot.
Oh. Did you want me to do a walk for you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, that's really good.
All right.
Done.
I've got witnesses here, okay, guys? Come on. What is your favorite out of all your products? Which one really speaks to you, or which one is the perfect formula for you?
Pinkalicious, because it's pink.
I love how simple, and I was thinking
We've had a VC, a venture capitalist company, come in, and they said, right, so talk us through the decision making. And I thought, okay, it's going to be a big question. Like, behind why you made it a square. And I got really close, and I said, because that was the mold I could afford. There is no thought. I just like Pinkalicious because it's pink and it works really well for my hair, but I formulated it for me, so yeah.
Are you hiring right now?
Yes, literally interviewing 6 people tomorrow. But you have to move to Christchurch.
Done? No. My modelling career is starting off, guys. What keeps you going and motivated?
Story, impact, positive impact, the fact that we have so many exciting things planned outside the plastic sphere. I have so many exciting things planned outside the Ethique sphere. I don't ever feel like I've ever done enough. 4.3 million bottles is great, but to me it's not really that many in the scheme of things. So I never feel, and I probably will never feel that I've achieved enough. So that's kind of annoying, to be frank, but that's what keeps me going.
All right, no, that's good. And our last question, I believe one of our followers, I also dislike routine.
Yeah. Don't have a kid, apparently they love it.
And get bored easily, emoji. People like us, you have other people out there. How do we create structure and black and white business plan structure for success?
Why do you want to create black and white business structure?
Ooh.
Who is this person? Okay, I'll have a conversation with myself because I appreciate I might be putting you on the spot. Why put yourself into a square box? I've never had a business plan. Doesn't seem to be doing us any harm. We have a plan on a page, so it's literally at the start of the year when we approve our budget, because we do that, because you have to. We are going to do this, we are going to do it this way, and whatever else you need to put in it. It's one side of an A4, and that's all. And we will revisit it constantly. Why on earth do you need to do what everybody says you need to do to run a business? I don't believe that old school ways of running businesses are necessarily appropriate for now. So if you don't like routine, doesn't matter. There's lots of people who run businesses who don't like routine. Don't feel constrained by what you think you should do.
All right, beautiful. Well, do we have any other burning questions from the audience? Yes. All right, so tell us your name and your favorite region in New Zealand.
Did you say regent? No, we don't have regent. Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name is James, and I'll say the Waikato because that's where I'm from. Whoop. My question is like, how do you think of unique ideas, and what is the process for you finding these ideas, generally?
I look at things a little bit differently to how people look at them in general. I don't like the idea that something has to be that way because it's always been that way. So I guess I look at things and think, well, that doesn't work perfectly for what we're now using it for, so how could it be better? Like the plastic water, I mean, that's a no-brainer, right? That's an obvious solution, and I'm certainly not the first person to have thought of it. I don't know, I just look at things a bit differently, and I mean, I don't sit down and say, right, I'm going to write 5 ideas down. They just come to me very randomly. Or someone will say something they hate, and I think, oh, I know the solution to that problem. I don't know, that's a really hard question, I'm sorry. There's no magical answer for ideas, otherwise everybody would run businesses. It's hard.
All right, we have time.
You do have a great moustache, though.
We have time for one more question. Anyone else has something burning? You know, it's that time when you're like, you know, when your heart's beating, and like, if your heart's beating, it's you.
Isn't everybody? Okay.
Oh, are you trying to expose me on my own channel? Like, no, all right. We just have a little koha for you. We just want to say on behalf of Seed Waikato as well as our Waikato family here, thank you so much. And yes, everybody, Brianne West, everybody, give a round of applause.